You're listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast, a discussion with engaging, empowering, and enlightening leaders about the greatest competitive advantage in business and entrepreneurship that often goes unrecognized: a team's energy. Here's your host, the woman who puts the energy in synergy, Karen R. Jenkins.
Hello, and welcome to Synergy Leadership Podcast. I am so excited to have a very, very special guest, somebody that's near and dear to my heart, one of my very first speaking coaches and mentors, Miss Norma Hollis out of Los Angeles, California, is joining us today to share her authenticity with you. So Norma, I'm not going to belabor this because just to unpack a little bit of what you have, we need 2 days, and we're going to spend about 30 minutes talking about it. But would you please introduce yourself to our audience and then tell them a little bit about your platform, this authenticity?
Thank you, Karen, and thanks for the invitation to be here. It's a delight to spend time with you again. It has been a while, so it's good to see you again and see you doing so well. Congratulations on your show. So I was actually the first Black woman to own a speaker bureau for Black speakers. And I started that around the time the internet started, around 96, a few years ago. And so I had the advantage of being first around on the internet as far as speakers and speaking and being Black. And as a result, I gained a pretty decent following of people who wanted to be speakers. So at the same time, I was figuring out, who am I? Because when I was 28, I realized I had done everything my parents had said do. I had the husband, cars, good job, nice house, money in the bank. I was miserable. And I didn't know what to do next with my life. And I didn't know who I was. So I was on a journey of self-discovery. And while I had my bureau, I had just finished some research. I researched human nature from personal, professional, and spiritual perspectives for about 30 years. And then I wrote some workbooks about it. And that was when I didn't know what to do with what I had finished, didn't even know really what it was, but it was kind of channeled through me. And I had a coach who suggested that I go do some workshops. So because I had the internet, I reached out to people who had reached out to me and had them sponsor me or host me in their city. So I traveled to 20 cities in 18 months, and South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina was one, which is where I met you. And I did my presentation on my authenticity grid and my authenticity assessment to help speakers be more authentic in their speaking. And actually people loved it. And I picked up 150 proteges during that year, or those few years, the first year. And then I kept doing that for a while. And I've just been building it and building it. So my platform is authenticity. And I refer to it a lot as self-awareness, because nowhere in society do we learn who we are. We just are jumped into society. And most of us learn who we are by our peers in school, and you know how tough school can be, and by our parents' view, which may be a little different and skewed by their perspectives and what they want to see in you rather than what you actually are. So I help people to actually step into who they are, and that increases their communication and increases their connection. And when I say communication and connection and authenticity as it comes together, it's with yourself, with others, and with the universe. So that's a brief overview of who I am and what I do.
And I must say, I was blown away. And it had to be in 2007 or 8, I think, is when I met you. And to sit in your workshop and to hear, it resonated so well with me, your message on authenticity. And I took the assessment, and you're right. A lot of people are molded by their parents, their surroundings, their communities. And even though they're molded by it, they kind of go with the flow because they haven't really sat down and taken the time to actually figure out, am I doing this because this is what my parents taught me, because this is what my friends are doing, or am I doing this because this is truly what I want to do? So when you look at your clients or your people you work with, and you know that you're focusing a lot on authenticity, share with us, why is it such a critical component in our daily lives to focus on that authenticity?
Well, that's a deep question, because it hits a lot of angles. So I ask you or anyone that's listening, why are you here? What's your purpose to be on the planet? Are you on the planet to fulfill someone else's dream? Or do you have a dream of your own? Years ago, when I started my bureau, one of my clients kept saying that, kids have stopped dreaming. They've stopped having dreams. They just go through the motions. And in reality, so many adults just go through the motions too, living what I call a manufactured life on autopilot. And that happens over time, beginning in preschool years, when if you go to a preschool program, and that was my degree in child and family life sciences, I used to direct preschool programs. The kids come in and they're so excited to be there, and the teacher's excited to see them. And she says, come in, do what you want to do. Go to the dramatic play and play there, or go draw or paint, or go play music, whatever you want to do, and go to the bathroom. You need to go to the bathroom, right? And kids are happy. And then they get home and they love to sing, and they start singing, and the parents, tired from work, say, don't sing so loud. They'll make so much noise. Don't be beating. Like, I know you like sound, but don't beat. Then don't talk so much. And so you cower back from your authenticity. And then you get into kindergarten and first grade, and rather than go to the bathroom when it's time, you have to wait, stand in line, raise your hand, and control it. And, and we need structure, no doubt. But so often in that short time of life, those early childhood years and first years of school, we get on this pattern, this indoctrination about this is the way life is supposed to be. And maybe it is, I'm sure it's how it starts, but there are so many options. In my life, I didn't realize until after I graduated from college that I had more choices than to be a teacher, a doctor, a dentist, or a lawyer. That's all my parents did. Those are the choices. And now I know that there's almost 1,000 different jobs in the United States, and what their industries and different positions are. So there's and you can I made it my own along the way. You can do that too. But we're taught in the box or the structure or the values and the experiences of our parents. Another example is when I moved from Detroit, Michigan to Los Angeles. I said, wow, look at that. The skies are actually blue, because in Detroit, they were gray all the time. So if you stay in one box, if you stay in the same place, if you don't move around, if you don't explore beyond your surroundings, you will be following the life that your parents gave you, because you haven't explored beyond that. But authenticity means exploring really what's living inside of you. What is the universe saying to you? What's your inner voice saying to you? What do you really believe? What are your gifts and talents? What are your values? And taking time to really examine that. That's what authenticity means.
Awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned all the things that authenticity means. And one of the things of what's your value. And one thing I discovered, even for myself, was what are my core values? And if I had to articulate it back then, I couldn't tell you. I could describe it, but I couldn't tell you what they are. And I found that, my inner circle, my clients, my friends, if I asked them, what are your core values? They struggle with answering that. So we've designed an exercise that help people identify not their job persona, not the mother persona, not the wife persona or the husband persona, but the true core of who you are. What are your core values? Because the reality is your core values dictate your decisions.
Yes, ma'am.
Your core values, when you make a decision and it doesn't feel right in your gut, and you're struggling with it, or people might be on jobs. I've done leadership trainings in the past, and I've done this exercise, and I've had to tell people, if you're that person that you're coming to work every single day and you're miserable, and of course that means that you're making everybody else around you miserable, then you might need to make a decision and do something else. And the normal, or the thing that really happens there, is if they really looked at why they're miserable, it's because their core values don't align with the environment that they're in.
Yes,
So
exactly.
talk a little bit about, let's drill down to that core value thing on the authenticity side, and what it means when you go against your authentic self, or when you go against your core values.
Well, values is the second dimension of my authenticity grid. So you've seen my grid, and it's a 9 dimensions, 9-box grid. And the first 3 boxes on the left are about your inner voice. And the second box in there is integrity, which means your values. And I preach the same thing you do, Karen, about decision making, because when you know your values, you make decisions so much faster. You don't have to muddle through and feel uncomfortable because you know where your boundaries lie. Now, when you don't follow your values, that's what happens when the illnesses, the cancers, the strokes, the things you hold inside. I did a presentation or an interview presentation thing last week, and it was to a group of coaches. And one of the questions that came up was the coach was not really being authentic. I forgot how the exact question was phrased, but essentially he was saying that he wasn't being authentic in something in his life. And what did I feel about that as far as coaching? And I really had some kind of stern words to say, because how can you coach if you're not being authentic? Because you're coaching people to be authentic. You may not use that word, but essentially you're coaching people to bring out more of themselves, to come from their own come from, not someone else's come from. And if you're not doing that yourself, how can you teach someone else? That's a real fake and fraud. That's a very inauthentic way to live your life. So, and I look at authenticity too. Well, about values again, I want to two more things about values. In all of my presentations, I ask people the question that, can you identify one value that as a society we all agree on? Just one. And I haven't had anyone give me one yet. Some have suggested empathy and compassion. And my response is, I don't think drug traffickers have empathy and compassion. Some say love, ditto on the same thing. What is one value that we all have that we all share? And in the speaking industry, particularly when it first started, a lot of the people more senior than I would say to me, Norma, you'll never make any money as a speaker unless you talk about relationships or money or health. That's all people care about. But that's not actually true. And they also say that if your 5 best friends are the people, you have the same cash flow or same money as the people, your 5 best friends. And I shift that to say that you find your 5 best friends and you find your values, because you're going to hang around people whose values you share. If you look at relationships that didn't work, maybe a divorce you had, or family members or co-workers didn't get along, chances are it was because of a values conflict. That's how important values are, to really live an authentic life and a comfortable life, and as much stressless as possible. It's being around people who share your values.
That is so true. And I know we're talking about core values, and what I've found is that trying to identify your core values, and I try to tell people, you really, it's not that other things aren't important to you, but they're really about 5 that you really hold on to, and you have to identify those. So my niece, who graduated from high school last May, came up and stayed with me for a little while, and I had her do the exercise. And when she came back to me and she shared with me her core values, although I saw the core values and I read the core values, I said, this to me feels like your parents' core values for you, not your core values. So I said, now I need you to go back and take a look at this and tell me what is important to you, not mom, not dad, not your friends, but I want you to go back and do that exercise. Because when I had my team do it and they shared with me their core values, I could see it, because the words that they used, they lived those words every day. It was like a match. Mm-hmm. When she came back the second time, I could really see these were her true core values. And we're so busy watching television and on social media and everything else. We're not really taking that time to do that self-leadership. And the challenge that I have with my clients, with my family and friends, is that you can't lead anyone else until you can lead yourself. It's that adage that says, when you're in the airplane and they tell you put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the child. And that's true, because you can't be at your best and offer your best, as you said, finding your purpose and living your purpose and why you're here, until you discover what that actually is. And that takes work.
It takes work. It takes time. And we're not, as a society, we don't take time to reflect. We're so busy doing. I call it a manufactured life on autopilot. People get on autopilot. I was coming home one day, I work at home, and I was coming in rush hour traffic from somewhere. And it took 5 lights to go 1 block. And I'm looking at these autopilot people just holding on to the wheel, just going home slowly but surely, probably complaining. And I realized, I can tweak one thing. And I know if I make a series of right and left turns, I'll be home in a little while. I won't have to go through the aggravation of the slowness because I just don't move that slow. And it would aggravate me, It's just, and I don't want to try to adjust to that. It's not necessary because there are options. But we forget sometimes that there are options. We forget that we have choices.
So the other thing I'll mention, I want you to speak to this, is that, one of the things that I've learned and that I know to be true, and of course everybody says it, is, we never grow in our comfort zone. I don't know many people that do. And when you start talking about authenticity and finding out who I am and doing the core values and coming with autism and finding out, who I am and what is my purpose. Because a lot of people, they're grown people that still don't know what their purpose is, because as you said earlier, they have a manufactured life on autopilot. So it's scary, Norma, to get out of that comfort zone and start poking around and asking myself questions and trying to figure this thing out. So what would you recommend to someone who is hearing your message and realizing, oh my, Norma made some great points, and that is me. I am living this manufactured life on autopilot, and I want to stop. I want to get off this merry-go-round, right? What tips would you give them to now start focusing on discovering who they are and who they are authentically?
Well, authenticity starts in the inner voice. I talked about my authenticity grid in the first 3 are inner voice. And that's where it all begins. So chances are, if you're not connecting with your authenticity, you're not connecting with your inner voice. There's some disconnection. There's a lack of communication and connection with your inner voice. So one of the suggestions that I give people to strengthen their inner voice connection is to examine how you answer 3 questions that you ask yourself every single day. Every day, early in the morning, you ask yourself, what time is it? You also ask yourself, what am I going to wear? And you also ask several times a day, generally, what am I going to eat? And you get an answer every single time. Now, the answers generally come in some way that impacts your senses. You have 6 senses. So it might be something you see, it might be something you smell or taste or feel. It might be something you sense in your 6th sense. A lot of times it's a 6th sense answer for those things. Sure, you can look at a clock, but you also can project in your mind approximately what time it is. You have that ability. If you did a few decades, you can kind of do that. So they look at how the answer comes to you. And that's a clue for how your inner voice speaks to you. And be more attentive when that happens. The example that I like to give is when I lost 30 pounds a lot of years ago. And when I did, I went shopping and I went to a resale store and I found this beautiful orange St. John suit, size 8, that fit me like a glove. And I was so excited. That's before I picked orange as my branding color, but I've always loved orange. I still have that suit. It's been at least 20 years. I will not give it away because I love that jacket. But I recognize that anytime I feel the way that jacket made me feel, I pay attention to what's happening around me, because that could be my voice speaking to me. And when I say voice, there's the inner voice of me talking to me, and then there's also the voice of the universe talking to me. So it may be one of those voices, but it means pay attention because there's a message here for you. So a lot of that comes through your senses, through something you feel, you see, you touch, you taste, or you sense. So just be more attentive to that. And it takes a little bit of attention to really pay attention to how that comes to you.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful, Norma. I mean, it's simple, right? But it is so powerful. I have never heard, and sometimes I coach my daughter. I've been coaching my daughter for years. She's 26 now, and the light bulb is finally coming on. She's getting it now. And there's certain things that I've tried to explain to her, the inner voice, when you have that conflict in your head, the universe speaks. I call them, most high, source or whatever. Part of that inner voice to me is our maker, and helping us be that GPS. But because there's so much noise, right? There's so much noise, as I said before, with what's going on in our head, the conflict of us living in the past or the future, worrying about what did happen and what's going to happen. Social media and its psyche of making us feel bad about ourselves because we like to compare the news media, which scares us to death about everything. And if you're not careful, if you don't take that time to slow down, to listen, you're going to miss those cues. You miss that attentiveness of saying, hey, I had this orange suit and it made me feel so good. So when I have things that occur in my life that give me that feeling again, that emotion, I need to pay attention. That is so powerful. I'm definitely going to share that with my daughter. I am. That is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that with me. I mean, that hit me. I try my best to slow down and to do meditation and to have those quiet times. It is phenomenal what it does for your life. It really is. But that one thing I think is, I appreciate that.
And what it does also is it begins to create a partnership with your inner voice, because that's really what you want. You want to have a partnership, a best friend, BFF, because it's always there. And you really don't get lonely because you can always have a conversation and you can always be listening. And then the listening is not just, it's a whole body listening. It's not just listening with your ears because, as I said, it's multisensory. So it's listening with your eyes. It's listening to how the universe speaks through what you see. University, you say Most High. I often say unseen supporters. So whether
I love that.
Yeah, whether it's ancestors or whether it's spirits or Holy Spirit or God or universe, however you define it, it's the same energy by different names, but it wants to be in partnership with you. It's like I tell people too, we don't make human beings. We go through the motions for it, but we don't have that power. Right. But there's a power so much stronger than us that if we just align with it, people say, God is with me. And I always say, but are you with God? Because we're not the architect. We're architecting our life, but it works better and it's more authentic when it's aligned with the unseen supporters that are there to help you move through the life that gave you the purpose in the first place and want to succeed with it.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. So Norma, as you look through your career, and it has been fabulous, and I will say your authenticity and your platform has touched so many lives. And it's the trickle effect because you're the coach's coach. So you coach other coaches, and then the impact that you have on them is a trickle effect on thousands of people throughout the world. And I'm so appreciative of the positivity and the authenticity that you've spread throughout. So when you look at all that you've done, share with us, what are you most proud of?
What I am most proud of is following my voice all these years. And I'll give you an example of what I mean when I say partnership and following, because I have lived a life outside of the box. A lot of it was because I have had health issues. I had ear infections for 55 years due to a hole in my eardrum and took antibiotics for 40 of those years. So it kind of messed up my body ecology. So I had to find more creative ways to survive than a 9-to-5 in stressful environments with coworkers I didn't share values with. So, because I've always been a little bit different. So anyway, when I was 8, what happened is I had a lot of pain in my ear from the medication to resolve the infections and from the earaches that came as a result of that. And the adults in my life didn't really get it. And that's when the voices started talking to me. So I said to the voices, I said, if you're the real voice I should listen to, then prove it to me. In the next week, let somebody walk by wearing red socks and let someone else mention the word elephant in the conversation. And I was attentive for the next one. I'm 8 years old, right? And sure enough, somebody walked by with red socks and someone mentioned the word elephant. So I tried different words to test it for the next 4 or 5 weeks. And the voice finally, it happened every time it showed up. And the voice finally said, "You believe me now?" And I said, "Yes, I believed it ever since." So if you fast forward to Thanksgiving around 2015, a friend of mine came by that morning to talk a little business, and he had on red socks. I said, "Oh my gosh, he's got red socks on." I said, "Well, if somebody mentions the word elephant in the next week, then that's a confirmation that what I'm doing right now is on the right path," right?
Right.
So I heard someone mention elephant in a response on Family Feud a few days later. And I said, "Yeah, I could say that, but that's not really personal enough. That's not really directed just to me, or to me in a small group." But sure enough, Thursday, 1 week later, I was visiting a friend who was doing a presentation. And in her presentation, she talked about how we don't allow ourselves to expand. An example is an elephant. You put a rope to his tail and a rope to a stick, and he won't go beyond that or go in circles, and will never go out of that circle. I said, "Well, there it is, there it is." So that was a confirmation. But the real confirmation that is validation for me that creating that relationship is truly a partnership is a gift that was given to me by my husband, who's no longer with us. He gave it to me maybe 8 years ago, and it was kind of cute, and I put it aside. So I was doing an event maybe 3 years ago, before COVID, and I was looking upstairs in my group of orange things, because orange, obviously, as you see, is my branding color. And I found what my husband had given me, and I got to show it to you. And this was my confirmation, because it's an orange elephant with red socks. Okay.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome and incredible. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's what I'm most proud of. Following my voice, believing that following the voice is the path to a happy and authentic life on the planet. Having the validation of that, being able to prove that. I was told decades ago that I was to make known that these things are possible. And I said, "Sure, I'll do that, but you got to give me proof first." I think I got the proof now.
I think so, Norma. Oh my gosh. You know what? There hasn't been a conversation that I've had with you from the first time I went to your workshop to you and I being connected, to you being my coach, to even now, that you have not filled my spirit and given me some piece of wisdom to walk away with. And I thank you again for that. You're just awesome. That's all I can say. And I'm so honored and blessed to have you in my life. So thank you for that, Norma. So Norma, as we come to a close, I have two more questions, and then we're going to come to a close. If you could give one piece of leadership advice or authenticity advice to our listeners, what would that advice be?
Well, for leaders, my advice is to be authentic. My advice is to allow yourself to be vulnerable. I know that corporate and a lot of jobs expect you to be perfect. And that is a really good way to make sure that when you get to be 50, 60, 70, you're going to have a heart attack, a stroke, or cancer or something, because that's an expectation that is extremely unrealistic. There is no perfection. I haven't found perfection on earth much, except maybe in the plants I see and how beautiful they are when they grow in their very natural state. But authenticity really means knowing what your gaps are, knowing where your weaknesses are. We all have, I prefer to call them vulnerabilities. And it's important to know where you are vulnerable. If I don't know where I'm vulnerable, I'll never be successful in my business. I can't think I'm perfect, and I can't try to do everything. I've tried it, it doesn't work. But if I find out where my gaps are, and I bring people into my business to help fill the gaps, the things that I don't do well, and it takes me 10 hours to do something that maybe someone else can do in an hour. Why should I waste my time when I'm the highest paid person in my company? It doesn't make any sense. So as the highest paid person in your group, as a leader, or the highest, the most responsible person, whatever, just be honest with yourself about where you're vulnerable. And don't be ashamed or afraid to bring people on your team who fill your gaps. That's the source of a leader. You know, my source of a human being, when I value other people, one of the things I look at is how do you handle your weaknesses? because we all have them and we have to do something to overcome them and to manage them. Authenticity is about managing your energy. So weaknesses come from, vulnerabilities come from energy that's unmanaged. And we all have the ability to control our own energy. So that would be my strongest recommendation to people. So
that is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Norma. And I definitely will invite you back. I hope you will agree to come back, because there's so much more that we can unpack in just a small amount of time. You have filled our knowledge or fill our minds with so much knowledge and so many takeaways. It's been great. So Norma, if our audience wanted to reach out to you and get in contact with you, learn more about the authenticity, or maybe even to take the authenticity assessment, how would they reach you?
Well, I would suggest you go to Gifts from Norma, GIFTS from Norma.com. And on there, you will see an opportunity to take my authenticity assessment. It is a free assessment. And after taking the assessment, there's some other opportunities for you, but that will get us connected. My email address is also on there if you'd like to reach out to me. And if you would like to know more, you can go to my LinkedIn page. I'm on Norma Hollis on LinkedIn. And you'll learn more about me there and connect there. But definitely connect. I have a lot of things I'm going to be doing in 2022 to help people become more authentic, rolling out some new programs and some new processes. I have an Authenticize program that I'm getting ready to launch that I'm really excited about. Yeah. So I invite you to get in my community. We have an opportunity. Matter of fact, when you take the assessment, you'll end up getting some emails from me inviting you. I'm having 4 free weeks of my Tuesday continuity class. So on Tuesday, one of the girls that I've trained, Coach Peggy, talks about authenticity. And it's all about how to live with authenticity. So that's what we talk about for a full year. We're ending our year on Tuesday, and we have 4 weeks where we open the door to anyone that would like to participate and peek in and see if you'd like to be part of our community. It's a very dynamic community, very authentic. People who are really striving to be their authentic self, to be their best self, to find what it means to be authentic. And the thing I get from everyone that's in those programs is that they really appreciate the opportunity to hear from other people and learn how they're solving problems that maybe you have solved differently. But it gives you a whole new perspective. My work helps people get new perspective about themselves, their work, and their life. And manage self-acceptance and self-management so that you can just be more joyful. I'm all about keeping joy in my spirit and helping others do the same.
You are so much. And thank you so much, Norma. And please be sure to reach out to Norma. There's such a plethora of information and knowledge that she's sharing. Take advantage of the 4 weeks. Take advantage of the free assessment. It's phenomenal. I've taken it. I probably need to go take it again. And we'll definitely have you back on again. So Norma, thank you for spending time with us today. I so much appreciate it. And that's giftsfromnorma.com. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Synergy Leadership. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast with Karen R. Jenkins. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, rate, review, and share our show. See you next time.